Welcome to El Nido. Out across the South China Sea, on the western edge of the Philippine archipelago, there is a place that, even for the most traveled, stops the breath the first time it is seen. They call it El Nido, a simple name. But behind that name lies an entire world of ancient limestone, turquoise water, and islands that time seems to have quietly forgotten. There are places in the world not made to be looked at, only to be felt. El Nido is one of them. When the sun first lifts above the horizon, the surface of Pinagbuyutan Bay shifts slowly from violet to jade. Karst cliffs rise out of the sea like enormous statues, sculpted by wind and water across millions of years. El Nido sits at the northern tip of Palawan, a province once described as the last frontier of the Philippines. Place still holding on to something almost no other place in the modern world still keeps: a sense of being untouched. Today's journey will take you through 10 of El Nido's most beautiful places. Each one is a different fragment of nature, of history, of stories never written down. Some of these islands carry the names of soldiers. Some carry the soft curve of a sleeping serpent in their sand. Some hide abandoned shrines deep in the jungle, and some are nothing but a narrow strait between two enormous walls of stone. Breathe slowly. Let the rhythm of the sea decide the pace, because this journey is in no hurry. Miniloc lies almost at the center of Pinagbuyutan Bay. Seen from above, it looks like a dark green fragment torn from the jungle and dropped into the sea. It is home to the two most famous lagoons of El Nido, the Big Lagoon and the Small Lagoon. The Big Lagoon is a long ribbon of jade water, walled in by limestone cliffs that rise hundreds of meters into the sky. When a small boat drifts inside, the light bounces from cliff to water, and you feel as though you are gliding through an open cathedral made by no human hand. The small lagoon is something else entirely. To enter it, you must swim through a narrow gap in the stone or duck beneath a low limestone arch. Inside, the world becomes almost completely enclosed, quiet enough to hear water dripping from stalactites above. These lagoons were carved over millions of years when ancient seas rose and slowly dissolved the karst cliffs of Palawan. Every curve, every vertical wall here is a fingerprint left by time itself. Miniloc is not really a place for photographs. It is a place to fall silent, to remember that some beauty does not need to be displayed. Shimizu is barely an island, a narrow strip of sand and a handful of coconut trees leaning toward the sea. But many divers consider the water around it the finest snorkeling spot in all of Bakwit Bay. The sea here is so clear that, from the surface, you can see individual branches of coral 10 meters down. The moment a boat drops anchor, schools of yellow and electric blue fish rise from below, dense enough to look like a colored cloud moving underwater. Local stories say Shimizu was named after a Japanese captain who was shipwrecked nearby in the last century. The story may be only a whisper, passed from one boatman to the next, but the feeling Shimizu leaves behind is very real. A strange stillness, as if the island is keeping something only it knows beneath the waves. At noon, when the sun reaches its peak, the water around Shimizu turns the color of liquid silver. Travelers usually pause here for lunch on the boat. Grilled fish, hot rice, fresh pineapple. A simple meal, but against this view, it becomes a memory that does not fade easily. This beach lies about 15 minutes by boat from El Nido town. A curving stretch of white sand, fringed with coconut trees and limestone outcrops that lean into the sea. Local memory says the name dates back to the Second World War. 7 soldiers, some say American, others say Japanese, were stranded here after the war's end. They lived as fishermen, taught the villagers new ways of using nets, and then quietly disappeared from history. No one knows exactly where they went. The beach has kept their name, as if to remind anyone who arrives that the most beautiful places often carry the quietest stories. The sand here is so white that at midday you can barely look directly at it. The shallow water stretches out almost ankle deep for long distances, but stays crystal clear. From the shore, you can see other small islands floating in the distance, like shadows hanging above the sea. When sunset arrives, the coconut shadows stretch across the sand. The beach becomes so still that you can hear your own breathing. Unlike the small beaches scattered between the islands, Nacpan is a single, almost 4-kilometer stretch of sand on the mainland. A wide beach, empty, wild. To reach Nacpan, you must ride a motorbike or a small van along red, dusty roads through coconut groves and tall grass fields. When you finally arrive, there are almost no signs of a town, only sand, sea, and a few quiet wooden huts. The sand here is pale gold, fine as powder. The waves are stronger than inside the bay, sometimes rising to a meter against the shore. This is not really a snorkeling beach, but it is a walking beach. You can walk for hours and not pass another person. At the end of the day, the sun sets directly into the sea. The whole shore turns from gold to pink, then violet. Standing here in that moment carries a strange weight, as if you are looking at either the first day or the last day of the world. Nacpan is not trying to please anyone. Perhaps that is why it has remained so untouched. It has a name that misleads. There are no snakes on Snake Island, only a strip of sand. A white sandbar, perhaps 200 meters long, curving softly across the water like the back of a sleeping serpent. When the tide is low, this strip of sand connects the small island of Vigan to the mainland. You can walk from one end to the other. 2 different seas on either side, 2 different shades of blue. On one side, deep open water, dark and full. On the other, a shallow lagoon, clear and pale jade. Standing in the middle of the sandbar, you feel as though you are walking the border between 2 worlds, and that you yourself are the line. When the tide rises, the sandbar disappears. Vegan becomes an island again. Every day this happens, and every day El Nido quietly redraws itself. That is what makes Snake Island unlike anywhere else. It does not stay still. It changes with the rhythm of the sea. And perhaps that is nature's quiet reminder that nothing is permanent, not even beauty. If you stand in the town of El Nido and look out to sea, the largest island in front of you is Cadlao. A great limestone mass, more than 600 meters high, rising above the water like a watchman. Cadlao is the highest point in all of Bakwit Bay. On clear days, from its summit, you can see almost every other island: Miniloc, Matinloc, Pinagbuyutan, Tapiutan, scattered like emeralds on a blue mirror. Around Cadlao lie small hidden bays, reachable only by kayak. Some hold tiny beaches just a few meters wide, pinned between vertical walls of rock. Deep in the jungle behind the island, a small waterfall falls into a clear, freshwater pool, known to almost no one. Local people say that on full moon nights, light reflects off Cadlao's cliffs and turns the entire bay silver. They call this the night Cadlao breathes, a story not written in any book, but passed down from one generation to the next. Standing beneath Cadlao, you feel how small a human being can be in the presence of stone. There is no spectacle, only the quiet enormity of mountain and sea. Las Cabañas lies just a few kilometers south of El Nido town. A long beach, soft-sanded, and the most well-known place in the whole region to watch the sun go down. In the morning and early afternoon, Las Cabañas is quiet. A few wooden cafes along the shore, a few hammocks hung between coconut trees. Most travelers come for one reason: to wait for the most important thing of the day, the sunset. Around 5 in the afternoon, the sun begins to descend. The sky shifts from pale blue to turmeric yellow, then to pink and orange, then violet. In the distance, the island of Pinagbuyutan stands like a small mountain in silhouette against the burning sky. The beach falls silent. People simply sit, watch, say nothing. Some sunsets make you reach for a camera. Some make you put the camera down. Las Cabañas is the second kind. When the sun finally touches the sea, there is a moment, perhaps 3 seconds, when everything seems to stop. The waves still move, the wind still blows, but time itself pauses. Matinloc is a long, narrow island on the western edge of Bakwit Bay. It is surrounded by sheer limestone walls and tiny beaches, no larger than a few square meters. But what makes Matinloc unforgettable is not its sand or its sea. It is what lies deep in its jungle, the abandoned Matinloc Shrine. In the 1980s, a small group of pilgrims built this shrine to the Virgin Mary. They believed the waters around El Nido were blessed and that the fishermen passing here would always be protected. Then, for reasons no one fully knows, the shrine was abandoned. Vines climbed its walls. The roof collapsed in places. Moss covered the altar. Today, visitors can walk a short jungle path to reach it. Inside, light pours through the broken roof and falls onto the stone floor like rays of sunlight that have lost their way. There is a stillness in Matinloc you will not easily find elsewhere. The stillness of things that have been forgotten. Climb a little higher up a rocky slope, and you reach a viewpoint looking across the western edge of the bay. From there, you can see the sea, the islands, the cliffs, and far in the distance, the narrow strait of Tapiutan. Some beauty is preserved, some beauty is forgotten. Matinloc belongs to the second kind, and perhaps because of that, it remains the most haunting. Of all the islands in El Nido, Pinagbuyutan is perhaps the most recognizable. Its shape is almost unique. A near vertical column of limestone rising hundreds of meters above the water like a natural tower. From far away, Pinagbuyutan looks like a statue, or a temple, or a ship turned to stone. At its base lies a very small beach, barely room for a handful of people. The sand is white, fine and warm under the midday sun. The water is shallow and still, allowing you to walk dozens of meters out and still only stand knee-deep. Behind the sand, a few leaning coconut trees. Behind them, vertical limestone walls that rise so high, you must tilt your head all the way back to see the top. Locals say that at night, when the boats have gone, the wind passing through Pinagbuyutan's hollows creates a sound almost like a voice. A long, low, drawn-out tone, lasting through the dark hours. They call it the breathing of the island. Pinagbuyutan is not a place to stay long. It is a place to pause for a moment, look up, and realize you are standing beneath something older than every history you have ever known. Tapiutan runs parallel to Matinloc, separated by only a narrow strip of water. This passage, the Tapiutan Strait, may well be the most cinematic landscape in all of El Nido. On either side, sheer walls of limestone. In between, a long ribbon of jade. When a small boat drifts through, you feel as though you are passing between two enormous pages of a natural book, each one written in stone and moss. Few people actually land on Tapiutan. Most tours simply pass through. But if you stop long enough, you find small hollows in the rock, almost forgotten caves, where small reef fish sometimes shelter when the tide pulls back. You find vertical fissures in the cliffs, deeper than the eye can follow. Some geologists believe that Tapiutan and Matinloc were once a single stone, split apart hundreds of thousands of years ago by an earthquake or an underground river. The narrow strait between them is the only memory of that separation. Drifting through Tapiutan is drifting through a kind of silence. There is no beautiful beach to stop on, no food stalls, nothing. Only rock, water, and a stillness that feels older than human beings. Perhaps that is why Tapiutan is the most fitting place to end this journey. Every place has its own way of saying goodbye. El Nido does not leave you with a city or a street. It leaves you with a sense of quiet that is hard to forget. Among ancient limestone cliffs, turquoise waters, and silent islands scattered across Bakuit Bay, you realize that some kinds of beauty do not need to be explained. They simply need to be seen. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about El Nido is that you can never truly see all of it. Every time you return, the sea and sky reveal a different shade. If you love places that are untouched, peaceful, and timeless like this, then our journey is far from over. We'll see you again in the journeys ahead.